The Major League Baseball season may have just started, but today we're focusing on Little League, Youth League, and the extremes that players are being pushed in some cases, giving them injuries once only seen at the professional ranks. Watch.
I was 13 years old when I found out I had to have surgery.
Little League, America's most celebrated youth sport. But the game's increasing competitiveness and costly year-round programs are leaving players with injuries that were once only seen in the big leagues.
I am seeing an injury rise in young athletes, and it's getting younger and younger.
One such alarming trend, Tommy John surgery, named after the legendary pitcher Tommy John, a four-time Major League All-Star who in 1974 was the first person to undergo the operation to fix a torn ligament in his elbow.
I was about 11, 12 years old when I first started having arm issues, starting to feel sharp pains. It just kept progressing, and the doctor said I had the tear from overusage with my arm.
And when I found out that David needed surgery, I was shocked. Being so young, maybe he wouldn't be able to use that arm again or play sports again.
Go! Stick it. There it is.
It might be fair to say no one sees these surgeries more than Dr. Tommy John, son of the famous baseball pitcher and a sports chiropractor in San Diego, California, who rehabilitates young injured athletes.
Ready, and go! Go! Seeing my dad's name attached to something that's happening more in kids than it is in professional athletes is making me sick. It's making us sick. The surgery was for a professional. That's where we should see it.
A study found that the biggest age group receiving Tommy John surgeries in the U.S. is 15 to 19-year-olds, with nearly 60% of all surgeries performed falling within that age group. A consequence, experts say, of kids being pushed to their limit, playing year-round and specializing in only one sport.
This most absolutely is a national problem, and it's something that is so much bigger than even one sport. Now we're seeing pediatric ACL surgeries, concussions, Tommy John surgeries, ligament tears, stress fractures, and spines.
The Ayala's hope their ordeal will serve as a warning to parents and coaches who are investing in what's become a billion-dollar industry.
They're playing year-round, nonstop, and so eventually it takes its toll. They're still growing, still young. Let the child get some rest, do different sports. No one's going to scout your kid at 8, 9, 10 years old. Your child's health comes first.
Safe!
Wow, pretty amazing, right? Joining us right now is author of Minimize Injury, Maximize Performance, Dr. Tommy John himself. Pick up that book. It's excellent for the sports parent and the sports kid. So you just said it. It makes you sick that teenagers are going through this. Why are they doing it now?
Well, what we're seeing is a trend that's coming from three causes. You have the American de-evolution lifestyle. You have kids are overfed, malnourished, and improperly hydrated. They're not going outside and playing freely anymore. They're sitting behind screens. And this is leaving their immune systems deplete, neuromotorly immature. They're disconnected from vital physiological and neurological processes. You have the $17 billion youth sports industry targeting these kids, selling a lie of unnecessary camps, clinics, private lessons. And they're targeting the third component, which are the parents, which unfortunately the parents are playing a risky game called racing to keep up with the Joneses. And the kids are losing every time. And
what you're doing is you can't build up ligaments. So what actually is Tommy John surgery that your dad went through in 1974?
So the Tommy John surgery is when the ligament on the inside part of the elbow breaks apart or tears. They take a tendon in some other location of the body and replace that ligament with a tendon. They drill through the bone, loop it through, and then the rehab process has to come. You have to teach your body how to accept a tendon where a ligament used to be.
So, Tommy, when you talk to these kids, they got to learn a work ethic, they got to learn dedication, and they want to perfect their, in many cases, their pitch. So what do you say to them when you want to develop those qualities in a kid, but we're watching them break down physically along the way?
So they got to understand that they're built like a pyramid, and it takes time. And the bottom part of the pyramid has to build up to the top. The top part of the pyramid is the act of throwing. There's two other massive sections that have to be built first before we can focus on that. So if you're obsessed with honing your skill, great, but there's a way to go about building yourself from the ground up, and more on top down will never work.
True. The other thing you brought up at the end is about ACL injuries. We see it a lot in women's soccer, women's lacrosse. these things that women are breaking down a lot in those sports.
Yeah, and I'd like to say that there was one sport that was affected. It's all sports, and sadly, there's these injuries that are occurring that we're seeing at epidemic levels outside of sport. So it's a complete cultural breakdown, and we have to start at the source, which is at homes.
Right. And as much as you love that kids are involved in something, you got to do it in moderation and maturity. And that's what I think comes across and will come across in your book, Minimize Injury, Maximize Performance. Dr. Tommy John, say hello to your dad, one of the great personalities in sports with 288 wins, and he played on every major league team twice.
Thank you for saying so, Brian. I will.
He is a great guy.